House Speaker Mike Johnson, along with Oversight Chairman James Comer. This is following a 2.5-hour bipartisan meeting that they had with 6 women that claim to be Jeffrey Epstein victims. And what we heard initially from Speaker Johnson is that after that meeting, he thinks there may be as many as 1,000 victims, that not all of them want to come forward. And while he promised the American people full disclosure and maximum transparency, he also reiterated time and time again his priority, as well as the president's, in protecting the identity of the victims that do not want to come forward as this investigation ensues. What we heard from both of them here is that they've collected some 34,000 documents and that they are starting to upload those so that the American people can see them. They've subpoenaed for a lot more. They've also subpoenaed additional people as well, 6 former attorney generals, Alex Acosta, as well as Pam Bondi, and that is part of getting some more of these documents in which they then said that they do want to share with the American people. Again, it was a 2.5-hour meeting that they had here with victims of Jeffrey Epstein's. And so what they have decided is they want to try to move forward. They feel like what Thomas Massie is trying to do with his discharge petition is now a moot point, because they feel as if they want to go farther. They felt like this was a bipartisan meeting and a bipartisan effort here, although there still are a lot of questions, and a lot of those questions surround the Department of Justice and what will be released here as more information starts to come forward. I want to bring in our ABC News' Alex Mallon, who's there at the Justice Department. And so, Alex, we know that there's a lot of people asking questions here. There's multiple investigations going on, and I think people feel like this has taken far too long for something that the Republicans said would be a priority, to release the information, to release some of these Epstein files here. But, you know, when you hear from the House Oversight Committee, they would like you to believe that this ball is certainly rolling forward in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, but we're hearing obviously the exact opposite from both Thomas Massie and then his Democratic counterpart, Ro Khanna, who are really heavily pushing this idea that there is something that's being hidden by this Justice Department and this White House, which is why they've put forward this discharge petition, which now they are going to seek to get 218 signatures with the help of, they're hoping, 212 Democrats and a handful of Republicans who, if they do back that discharge petition, this will be brought for a full vote on the House floor, regardless of what House Speaker Mike Johnson is saying. And if that happens, again, I mean, there's big caveats. It's going to have to go then to the Senate, and then it would have to go to President Trump's desk. Would he sign off on something like this that directs his own Justice Department to hand over files? Now, that bill does include a provision that will require the Justice Department to redact any names of victims. So when you hear House Speaker Mike Johnson there talking about the need to be sensitive towards victims, that is something very much that is also on the mind of Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna. They are saying that there should be no disclosures of people who are victims of Jeffrey Epstein's crimes if they don't want to have their names disclosed. But again, I think that what we're hearing and what we're seeing on Capitol Hill today is when you do bring the victims in the fold, it does change the calculus. And that's actually something that the Justice Department has been relentlessly criticized for during this entire process. When they went to multiple judges to try and unseal various records stemming from investigations into both Jeffrey Epstein and his paramour Ghislaine Maxwell, they were criticized multiple times by judges who said that the victims were not given a voice or input in that process. And so that, I think, is what we're going to see both reflected in today's proceedings and tomorrow's, when we hear from victims, both in a press conference with Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie, as well as a rally that victims have planned on Capitol Hill. I think you're going to hear a lot of anger from victims who say that their voices have been entirely excluded from what has become, a very overtly political process.
I think that's a really good point that you're making there, Alex, especially when you heard Speaker Johnson time and time again say that, they have several objectives here, but really for them, number one is to make sure that they are protecting the victims. They want to bring justice. They want to protect the victims, especially those who have not come forward, and they want to bring justice, make sure this never happens again. But Alex, you mentioned these names being redacted. Speaker Johnson said that his big issue with that discharge position is that not only does it not protect the victims, in his opinion, but it also doesn't protect whistleblowers either. And he was asked a second question on that, Alex, and his response essentially was that it wasn't artfully drafted enough in a way that he felt like actually protected those people.
Yeah, and I think that the real crux of this right now is obviously there's a very big politicized spat between House Speaker Johnson and Thomas Massie, and also the White House, who really have attacked Massie given his overt criticism of President Trump and him injecting the Epstein issue back into the headlines when they've been trying to kind of refocus their efforts on things like crime in various Democratic-run cities around the country. Whereas, we're seeing increasing sound bites come from political town halls across the country where this still very much is an issue, where the American public has just had a breakdown of trust with the administration over their bungled handling of this.